A game congratulation message appeared, asking if the player wanted to save clear time on the server. The player responded yes and declared they had reached the end. Following a typical template, the story introduced a school-based tale about the descendant of heroes who once defeated a demon king. Chaos erupted in the kingdom when the hero's friend killed a young girl known as a saint, prompting the emperor to order the hero to subjugate his friend. A visual described a heavenly realm rabbit boss, resembling a bear or cat-like demon king, with a note about its revival. A character exclaimed in confusion, stating they could not exert any strength and questioning what was happening. Someone expressed gladness, hoping someone would grow up well. One voice noted the young master was brimming with energy, and another agreed, asking if my lady thought so too. Someone lamented their inability to see or move freely, questioning if this was reality or a dream. The tale began with the choice, summoning sword with demon. The character questioned if this was a typical fantasy occurrence, deeming it impossible. Someone's name was spoken, though the full name was not yet revealed. The character revealed the kid's name was Len Ashton, and then suggested Len as the young master's name. Len Ashton, the ex-best friend who betrayed the main lead, scoffed at the idea of being in a game called The Legend of the Seven Heroes. He questioned why he, specifically, had to be Len Ashton. A credits page appeared, listing Yuki Ryu as the original author, Sagawa Hajime for the comic, and Nakamura for character design. A voice instructed someone not to jump pointlessly, warning it would leave them open, followed by a cry of pain. Someone thanked the instructor profusely, who then asked if they were okay and declared training over, noting their movements didn't resemble a 7-year-old's. The speaker recalled the initial shock and refusal to accept reality, then asked if someone had been waiting for their mother to eat. The speaker revealed they had kept something secret from their parents, praised them, and suggested going back to sleep, mentioning a transmigration. A status screen displayed information about the Ashton family's demon sword summoning technique, its level, and proficiency. Confirming their observation, the speaker noted visibility of the status screen. Unlike the game's interface, the screen displayed attack, defense, magic power, and physical strength with question marks, emphasizing the absence of visible personal stats and heightening realism. Acknowledging the existence of unique skills, the speaker identified demon sword summoning as one, questioning their current ability to wield it. According to the description for demon sword summoning, proficiency grew with use, unlocking special abilities over time. Recognizing the risk of unconsciousness in dire situations, the dreaming figure noted that summoning drained magic power, leaving them vulnerable if depleted. Understanding the world's ties to the game, the dreaming figure resolved to avoid a future where such power became necessary, acknowledging the recent close call. A voice welcomed Len back, suggesting it was time to practice swordsmanship with dummy swords from the storeroom, to which Len agreed enthusiastically. Len secretly used the demon sword of the wood element, grunting as he began to understand and move. The instructor praised Len's move and urged him to continue until he could no longer move, to which Len responded that he could barely last 30 minutes in his current body. Len declared he would return after gathering more energy, thanking the instructor who told him he did well for a first-timer and promised to pick him up later. Len explained that the so-called demon stone was an item obtained from a monster's body, but there was no reaction from the demon stone he previously received, despite raising his proficiency in demon sword. Another month passed, marked by the sound of exertion and the passage of time. The instructor noted Len's improved movement compared to the past, but criticized his balance and advised him to concentrate his strength at his waist, eliciting a grunt from Len. The instructor asked if Len was okay, but Len insisted he could continue, prompting the instructor to tell him not to push himself too hard and that he had done great, ending today's training. Len's status showed LV.1 for summoning and technique, with proficiency in Demon Sword, and the ability to summon the one-eyed Demon Sword, after receiving the First King's blessing. The instructor noted Len's training was becoming more interesting, but pointed out another blister on his otherwise beautiful hands. Len replied it was fine, perhaps just a bit too harsh. His mother acknowledged the Ashton family's duty as protectors and praised her son's love for swords. She worried his bravery might become a curse, leading to severe injury, a thought that filled her with dread. She voiced her fear that his bravery could turn into a curse and lead to him being badly hurt. Len reassured his father, stating he was strong, wouldn't fall to monsters, and was less careless than before. He reflected on his past life, where his parents divorced early, and he lived solely with his mother. As the years passed, their conversations dwindled, and his mother eventually stopped returning home by the time he was an adult. He considered that she might have had her own struggles back then, and was thankful she allowed him to attend university. A voice chuckled, suggesting they would continue tomorrow, followed by unintelligible laughter. He felt more fulfilled each day compared to the past, wanting to complete 10 more repetitions. The voice refused to continue, stating they would stop for the day, and asking if the other person was all right. Concern filled the voice as it asked what was wrong and if he had hurt himself, noting his body felt lighter. He stammered a response, his tone trembling while describing the strange sensation of weightlessness. The woman's breath caught sharply as she reacted to something unexpected, her gasp slicing the air. The woman exclaimed that his speed and strength were increasing, urging him to continue without rest. The man confirmed his speed and arm strength were growing, grunting with the effort. Someone questioned in surprise how the kid suddenly became stronger. The woman realized it might be Len, understanding something significant had occurred. She praised Len for his progress, marveling that he was a skill bearer and asking what was wrong. He admitted he wasn't sure since he didn't have a skill, but suggested his skill might have leveled up from training. She declared Len shouldn't be confined to the small village and should go to the capital to become a knight, then asked what skill it was. Questioning her lack of curiosity, he mentioned hearing of a rare skill called Demon Sword Summoning. Yearning to hunt monsters together, he also desired to live peacefully in the village and help it prosper rather than seek fame. Should the worst happen, he assured that he could protect his father. Reflecting on his happiness over the past 7 years, he acknowledged their role in transforming him from his former self. The dreaming figure acknowledged he was no longer the same person as in the past, a new self having been born. Identifying himself as Len, the figure spoke. With a wish for their shared future, he urged someone to stop being a brat. Comparing his situation to a second playthrough, he explained his current state. Determined to cherish family time, he vowed to prevent a future of despair. Despite knowing dreams might fade, he aimed to live differently than the game's Len. Resolving to defy fate, he opposed the shifting future and unreasonable destiny. In the Leomel Empire's northern city of Clausel, a beautiful young woman with a pleasant appearance was present. She asked if anything was wrong, stating she was merely bored now that training was over, and was told she was no longer qualified to be his companion. A knight explained he had been ordered by his master to patrol the Northwest Territory and slay a beast, requiring a knight of her caliber. A sigh escaped the narrator, noting 3 years had passed since the first leveling up. He admitted training hadn't been daily, sometimes unable to wield a sword due to field work and preparing for winter. Len's father, Sir Roy, expressed his gratitude, but mentioned the Baron's son also received praise yesterday, with the Baron predicting his future in the capital. 2 knights, Sir Vios and another, apologized for their intrusion and inquired about Len's presence in their village. Len recognized them as servants of the Baron, who ruled their territory, and recalled the feudal system, where each knight served a higher noble. Sir Vios confirmed that several villages had been attacked by a critter-type beast with wind-like speed, causing casualties during their patrols. He explained that a global organization called the Guild ranked beasts by threat level. Beast ranks ranged from S to G, and this particular creature was an A rank, comparable to the early stages of the Demon King's invasion. Len questioned the appearance of such a high-ranked beast, as only F-rank creatures typically appeared in their area, which the knights were investigating. Sir Vios promised increased security and more knights, urging Len to hold on and assuring him they would hurry. Len's father, Sir Roy, instructed him to greet the captain of the knights, the highest-ranking knight in their territory. Sir Vios noted Len's age, 10, matched the ladies and recognized him as a skill-bearer, regretting they couldn't test his swordsmanship under different circumstances. Sir Roy stated they would be busier from today and hoped Len would stay safe, asking if he could see the beast's wanted notice. Len insisted he needed no worry and could handle an A-rank beast alone, surprising Sir Vios who, despite acknowledging Len's strength, doubted he surpassed 5 knights. The narrator explained the little boars in the area had delicious meat, attracting other beasts, and the plan was to reduce their numbers as they were easy prey. The narrator relayed that father, usually hunting in the morning, began entering the forest in the afternoon after the night's warning, continuing his hunts. Mother asked father if he wasn't overworking himself, and he replied it was almost time for her to help with hunting, but he would manage until the beast situation calmed. Father thanked mother for her help, assured her of his safety, and expressed his hope that she would be all right. Mother voiced her desire to preserve the peaceful life they had enjoyed for over 10 years, and playfully warned father not to sleep during their bath. The narrator stated that days passed until the 10th night, when father still hadn't returned, prompting mother to ask if it wasn't getting late. Mother declared she was going to search for father, but Len protested it was too dark and dangerous. Mother insisted she would go regardless, as it was too perilous for him alone. Len found it so dark he could barely see, realizing it was his first time outside at night, while Mother cautioned him to watch his step as they neared the forest entrance. Mother pointed out the sound of flowing water, warning Len to avoid falling into the river separating the forest. Len agreed they could only reach the bridge as his vision extended no further. Len exclaimed his relief that father was safe and that it truly was him, calling out, "Dear father." Mother wondered why father was in such a place, while Len told mother to wait and asked father if he was okay. Sir Roy, the father and a knight, continued his training, having reincarnated as the story's mastermind. His son cried out, urging him to regain control as they faced a desperate situation. A pained grunt escaped the son's lips. Len shoved his father away, shouting at him to let go. His mother yelled for Len to release his father, realizing 2 more attackers had appeared. Len grunted, feeling the physical ability up, small, buff, and asked if he could push them away. Another pained grunt echoed. The son exclaimed that it only took 1 hit. Len laughed triumphantly, declaring he could fight them and had become strong from all the training and skills. He let out a relieved sigh. Granny Rig assured them they could be at ease now, as the situation had calmed down, though Len was in an unpredictable condition. Len worried that the wanted monster might still be in the forest, but reinforcements wouldn't arrive for another 10 days. His concern for his mother and the villagers led him to resolve action if the monster entered. The little boar from yesterday remained uneaten, prompting him to realize he needed to hurry. Having leveled up his demon sword summoning skill, he could summon a level 2 demon and receive a level 3 sword. Acknowledging the danger, he affirmed his duty as part of the Ashton family. Declaring his intent to protect the village like his father, he vowed to begin tomorrow. Realizing he was the only villager capable of fighting monsters now that his father was injured, he admitted the difficulty of the request. Pleading for permission to protect everyone until reinforcements arrived, he made his case. Noting his mother's sleepless night, he was permitted to enter the forest the next morning with a dusk return requirement. His mother advised him to use Tsurugi Rock as a landmark if he got lost, warning him not to enter the depths of the forest. He found another little boar, startled by it, and tried to use magic like tree sprout and ivy, but didn't know how. The dreaming figure mused that while it required magic consumption, they should end the fight with one strike, but couldn't bring themselves to hurt the creature further. The dreaming figure used the incoming little boar as an opponent, practicing and marveling at having hunted 12 boars on their first day. They reported hunting another 12 little boars on the second day, and managed to increase the number on the third. On the fourth day, they increased the number of hunted boars again, and by the fifth day, they had entered the forest without encountering the wanted monster. The dreaming figure announced their return, stating they would take care of someone whose condition wasn't good, and asked them to wait outside, prompting a panicked question about their father. A voice explained that they used tons of precious medicinal herbs, but the condition worsened since dusk, and the person was barely holding on, with no clear answer as to when it happened. The medicinal herb stocks were running out, and would all be used up that night. Granny Rig asked someone to bring the formula box from her house, mentioning her husband knew about it, and inquired if there was a herb-growing habitat nearby that could help. Granny Rig explained that the herb went extinct during a harsh winter decades ago, and no longer grew in the surroundings, having previously grown around the foot of Tsurugi Rock. Identifying the herb as rondo grass, a healing item they often used when playing the game, the dreaming figure resolved to verify its extinction firsthand. Declaring their father's survival dependent on immediate action, the dreaming figure dismissed any hesitation as time slipped away. Resolving to surrender to fate's course, the dreaming figure steeled themselves against doubt or fear. Filling the air with ragged gasps, the sound of labored breathing accompanied the figure's ascent. Observing the lack of resources at the rock's base, natural magic was planned for the peak's ascent. Pinpointing the location as Rondo Grassy, the figure paused to assess the terrain. Discovering what he sought, he questioned the presence of small boar bones at the elevation. Upon closer inspection, he saw ornaments mixed with the bones and felt a sense of unease. Small boar-like creatures squealed as they were disturbed. Something felt wrong as he observed the creatures trying to flee as if terrified of an unseen threat. The wanted monster was revealed to be the figure he had just encountered. A shadowy presence loomed nearby, its aura driving the boar-like creatures into panicked squeals. Terror gripped him when he noticed clawed footprints leading directly toward his position. A unique D-rank monster, Chief Wolven, was identified, prompting questions about Len's demon sword. The mountain's peak was a D-rank zone where defeating the rare Chief Wolven would yield a special item. Len grunted, realizing the monster's speed advantage made it difficult to handle. He exclaimed that this was no ordinary beast, as Chief Wolven could wield wind magic. Len explained Chief Wolven used wind to create invisible hands that stole items and attacked. Admitting that his nature magic's attack power was low, Len had to get near its stomach and noticed a wound on its leg. Wondering if the wound explained the monster's inaction, Len realized this was how his father escaped. Declaring his father's duty as a knight complete, Len resolved not to give up. Resolving to counter the wind magic, Len steeled himself to stay calm and harness nature magic. Grunting, Len knew he needed to halt its movement, even for a fleeting moment. Recalling his father's lessons about patience, Len waited for the perfect opening to act. The number 3 appeared, possibly indicating a countdown or specific phase. He gasped as the magic sword of wood broke, questioning if he could resummon it. He panicked, realizing the counterattack was coming, and that resummoning the broken sword drained too much mana. The woman cursed, realizing the dire situation. Coughing, her voice strained as she considered her options. Fearing the herb might cause her to lose consciousness, she hesitated. Remembering her father's need for the remaining herb, she focused on her purpose. Grunting in frustration, she struggled with her current predicament. Urging the corpses to stay put, she hurried forward, her mana depleted. Considering the magic stone's power, she weighed summoning 3 more swords. Exertion made her grunt again, a sound echoing her fatigue. Resolved to save her father, she refused to accept losing him. Declaring this her final bit of power, she braced for the climax. Staggering under the strain, she steadied herself for one last effort. Bracing for a wholehearted single attack, she gathered her resolve. The narrator mused about the world of swords and magic, a genre that had captivated them since youth. The magic sword absorbed the Chief Wolven's magic stone, its power resonating with a triumphant cry. A beast's cry echoed as a voice lamented, "My body won't move at all! This is bad!" Knights from Clausel urgently called for help, explaining they had no time for greetings, and needed to bring a child to his room. The knights arrived to find the child desperately holding onto rondo grass, asking if it was Len. Len. Someone questioned if Len Ashton had defeated Chief Wolven alone, expressing disbelief. The idea that someone capable of defeating a D-rank beast, like Chief Wolven, resided in this territory was astonishing. Len Ashton's status revealed he was level 10, possessing magic sword summoning LV2, and proficiency in summoning technique. Despite advice to call for backup before entering the forest, Len felt the thrill of the hunt was worth the risk. Len explained his desire to sell Chief Wolven's treasures to aid the village, wondering if the taxes would be acceptable. Acknowledging Len's selflessness, his achievements were noted, with an offer of return favors and credit given to his father. His mother worriedly accepted the bracelet, but expressed concern over their reckless actions. Peace had finally settled upon the nameless village, as a reader of Angliscan observed after a long period of turmoil. Someone questioned the identity of a girl, noting she was clearly not from their village. The question lingered, who was this girl, as she distinctly did not belong to the village? Len admitted a sense of familiarity, recognizing this as a fateful encounter. The girl confirmed her injuries had healed, and asked how the speaker knew her. Addressing someone as pardon, the speaker suggested they begin. A surprised exclamation of "Wait!" and "Wahi!" cut through the air. The speaker marveled at the girl's skilled swordsmanship despite her lagging behind, questioning the sudden change in plans, and if she had orchestrated the match. Declaring the fight would end before anyone was injured, the speaker was met with the girl's surprised question. The dreaming figure declared victory, only to be met with utter confusion. Despite the princess's plea to stop, the dreaming figure insisted on continuing the fight. Lycia Clausel arrived, addressing someone as Vice Sama and offering an explanation. Lycia Clausel announced she was representing her father, bearing a letter for the Ashton family. The letter praised the Ashton family's victory over Chief Wolven and expressed high hopes for Len Ashton. The emotionless figure reacted with surprise to Lycia Clausel's unexpected presence. Lycia Clausel questioned why the princess had proceeded it alone without her knowledge, noting the extended break the others were taking. The emotionless figure expressed bewilderment at how the situation had unfolded. The emotionless figure reiterated their confusion about the current circumstances. The Saintess of White was Lycia Clausel's renowned title, celebrated for her striking appearance, charismatic demeanor, and unmatched prowess in competitive battles. A prior sparring match had convinced Lycia Clausel of the individual's capabilities, outweighing the assessment provided by the stationed knight. The village's position within the Clausal frontier meant that traveling to the city by horse required more than 10 days, Lycia Clausal noted. The young warrior admitted his father had already injured Chief Wolven, stating their victory wasn't solely his own accomplishment. From their earlier sparring, the young lady's dedication to sword fighting was evident, and he had no intention of leaving. Though determined to stay, he acknowledged his father's role in protecting the village from threats like Chief Wolven. To prove his resolve, he vowed to intensify his efforts, refusing to abandon his family or the community. As the village's sole defender, his father's safety weighed heavily on his decision to remain. With no desire to relocate to the city, he embraced village life, pledging to work harder for its future. The young lady asked if he had lost yet. He defiantly declared that he had not lost. The older man praised the boy's incredible skill at such a young age, acknowledging the effort it took to defeat the young lady and her sacred magic. He urged the young lady to have thoroughly comprehended the young man's strength and asked Weiss Sama to convey his appreciation upon returning home. The young lady confirmed that she knew. He apologized for barging in, stating it was a great experience, to which she agreed, and he decided to get some rest. The knight assured the Ashton family that he would convey their kind hospitality to the Baron, apologizing for the young lady's earlier behavior. He explained they had to depart the next morning, regretting that they couldn't stay longer for sparring sessions. The knight marveled at the young lady's ability to act as a substitute feudal lord at her age, excelling in both military and literary arts with top academy grades. He mused about the game's narrative, noting that the character's childhood was rarely discussed and expressing surprise at meeting her so early. The young lady confessed she couldn't sleep at all and refused to give up. She inquired about a letter for the boy, mentioning her intention to invite him to Clausal and also write a letter of gratitude to the Ashton family before their departure. The knight asked if she had made a mistake, pointing out that the letter looked like a love letter. She insisted she meant every word, stating her passion for him surpassed their first meeting, and that the rumored exceptional boy was even more outstanding in person. The knight worried it sounded like a maiden desperately in love, to which she responded, "I understand, my lady." He continued, describing her valor, bravery, and gallantry, and questioning who else would want to spar with him again and again. The knight still felt it sounded like a provincial girl who had just witnessed a hero, reiterating that it was like a love letter, and she admitted she was used to writing administrative letters. Having concluded their first meeting with a flashy battle, she meekly left the village. A sudden gust of wind snatched the letter from the woman's hand before she could throw it away, a detail she hadn't yet realized the significance of. Upon leveling up, the demon sword of banditry LV1, a random item from a target, was acquired with a fixed probability of stealing. The woman realized she had managed to steal a feather from the bird, and then wondered about the next item. She then noticed something else, a letter, and questioned if it was a love letter. The wind carried news, and the woman wondered if this high-quality parchment letter was an invitation to Clausal, mentioning knights. She noted the knights were not from Weiss-sama's group. Recognizing a different crest, she questioned if they were knights from another domain, distinct from Clausal's. HB. A man asked if the young man was a subject of the village ruled by the Ashton family, and upon confirmation, requested to be led to them, stating they carried a message approved by Viscount Givens. Northeast of their location, the young man noted, lay Viscount Givens' domain, a noble house unrelated to the Ashtons but ranked higher than the Baron. Addressing the Clausal family's involvement, the speaker warned that a simple invitation wouldn't guarantee compliance, as tensions predated their arrival. A message from the Viscount, it was declared, praised the recipient's abilities and sought their employment. If the visitor hailed from the Clausal family, The speaker acknowledged. Immediate conflict could be avoided, though unresolved issues lingered. Acknowledging fault, the visitor vowed to reform and return. Discussions of the village's incorporation into Viscount Given's domain, the speaker revealed, signaled factional disputes reaching even this remote area. Divided among three factions, the Liomel Empire saw nobles align with the imperial faction, which upheld the emperor's sole leadership. Celebrated as the protagonists in, the hero faction comprised families whose ancestors had slain the Demon King. Baron Colossal belonged to the neutral faction, a group of pacifists who disliked conflict and respected both major factions. Incorporating a border village into another noble's domain was rare, but possible if all parties involved gave their consent. Wishing to avoid the ongoing power struggles and conspiracies, the speaker emphasized how the Ashton family's service to the Colossal family had already entangled them. Questioning the village's incorporation as stemming from a lack of military strength, the document referenced the Chief Wolven incident and the knights stationed there. Though the Colossal family's influence was formidable, their rivals' reluctance to provoke open conflict made the Ashton family's neutrality strategically vital. Weiss had previously mentioned that a feudal lord could face punishment for repeatedly dispatching inadequate forces when monsters caused damage within their territory. The speaker speculated that Viscount Givness might be exploiting the recent disturbance involving Baron Colossal, possibly by orchestrating a frame-up. He might feign protecting the accused Baron, then lure him into the hero faction, a scheme potentially planned from the very beginning. Someone questioned if Viscount Givness had deliberately unleashed Chief Wolven, suggesting such actions were excessive. The speaker admitted to overthinking, noting that everything would make sense if their suspicions were true, but evidence for the potential scandal was lacking. They concluded that for now, they could only speculate and must remain vigilant, resolving to report the matter to the Baron immediately. The speaker mused that their own position might shift, forcing them to confront the same hero faction who had been allies in a past legend. A villager thanked Sir Len for a successful hunt, stating the village was now fully prepared for winter thanks to his help. The villager praised Sir Len's talent, certain he would succeed in the imperial capital, but Len insisted he would not leave their village. Someone informed Sir Len that the madam was with Rigdono. A voice cried out in pain, demanding why the other person suddenly raised their voice, hurting their ears. The speaker questioned the other's presence, stating they would only be there if they weren't coming to Colossal. As a thank you for their recent sparring match, someone offered a showerhead crystal orb that generated water. The man explained that the magical tools were powered by magic stones, and that his was an old one he had repaired himself. He described the saintess, blessed by the chief deity Elfin, noting that unlike the 7 heroes, she had been reborn many times. Lady Lycia thanked the speaker, who then inquired if she had also treated him before, admitting she had been unaware of it. A voice observed that her movements were sharper than before, indicating she had worked diligently during the short intervening period. Someone cautioned the speaker to be careful, asking if they were all right. The speaker exclaimed that the other person had been moving too much without adequate rest and questioned their stamina, though admitting they enjoyed their time together. The speaker declared they would not lose next time and suggested another sparring session for the following morning, noting several more sessions were planned after she stayed for a few days. A thought followed that it was probably unwise to grow too close, but she genuinely intended to return as winter ended and the next event unfolded. The speaker's father confirmed his health had completely recovered thanks to everyone's care, and asked if Viscount Given's knights were present again. Someone announced they had been waiting for Sir Ashton, and inquired about his purpose there this time, mentioning the Viscount still highly valued his abilities. The speaker expressed a bad premonition about the situation and mentioned bringing good news for his son, as the Viscount had an offer for Len. The offer was admission into the prestigious Imperial Cadet Academy's special class, intended to support Len Ashton. General admission alone was difficult, making the special class at the Imperial Cadet Academy an exceptionally rare opportunity. Len insisted he had no intention of leaving the village, firmly refusing the offer to become a noble. He stated the special class was where main characters belonged, and he absolutely did not want to go there. Len declined the Viscount's offer to ennoble him, finding contentment in his current village life. He offered to draft a reply for the Viscount, stating they would deliver their response to the envoy. The Viscount's envoy departed, and a few days later, the situation shifted dramatically. Circumstances had changed, and the Viscount welcomed her third visit. The envoy apologized, explaining the young lady had fallen ill near another village they intended to visit. He described the sudden, peculiar illness with no warning signs, noting it caused a high fever but didn't spread. Lady Lycia's condition stabilized 3 days later, and Len was welcomed, though her cheeks were still flushed. Len offered an apology, expressing his regret. The flustered woman apologized for falling ill upon arrival and causing trouble. She declared her intention, as the Saintess, to demonstrate Clausel's unity through her presence. The flustered woman mentioned feeling extremely thirsty. At times, her thoughts turned to her age, her position, her responsibilities, and her inability to ever defeat the other person. Lingering still was the memory of her mother's joy at her becoming the Saintess of White, and her belief that she would achieve great things, even seeing her face in portraits. A memento from her childhood, the outfit she wore made her feel her mother's support during fights. The flustered woman stated this would be her final visit to this place. Acknowledging the other person's refusal of the Imperial Cadet Academy invitation from Viscount Givan, she noted their pledge of loyalty to Clausel alongside their father. With a heavy heart, she admitted her own uncertainty about the path forward, torn between duty and doubt. Apologizing for troubling the other person's family, she expressed sincere gratitude for their kindness, believing the girl was pure. Questioning who truly held secrets, she wondered if this was the end, considering the Saintess's resolve. A string of numbers and letters appeared, hinting at a code or identifier. Kazama Yukina asked if she could borrow some ink later, needing to write her father and having run out. The other character readily agreed, stating it was no trouble, and she was welcome to use their stationery. Kazama Yukina then requested a firelighting magic tool for their next visit. Even a spare would suffice. She insisted this was her last time, but thought a firelighting tool would be convenient for future visits, noting they had been avoiding her. Kazama Yukina asked for their agreement, stating anyone would be confused by a sudden spar request, and that advance notice would be appreciated. She suggested a proper conversation once the other person felt better, then questioned her own words. Kazama Yukina inquired if she was welcome to return, truthfully admitting her headache was subsiding. She declared her need to write her father, while she still had energy, and asked to borrow their desk. Kazama Yukina pointed to some paper and asked if the ink was inside a specific box. She read aloud from the letter. "The passion I feel for you now surpasses what I felt before we met, and your valor, bravery, gallantry." The other character remarked that the letter appeared to be a love letter. A question mark hung in the air, signifying confusion. The character questioned how a specific item ended up in his room, realizing his letter had definitely been read. He vehemently denied the letter was romantic, claiming it was merely an overzealous expression, not a sign of feelings. An empty panel suggested a brief pause or transition. Someone questioned why the letter was treasured, suggesting it be thrown away and reminding the recipient of their aversion to sentimentality. She directly asked what went through the other's mind after reading the letter. Following the young lady's request, Weiss and others agreed to help with hunting and carpentry as thanks for hospitality. Stored in box 34 were the materials for repairs, and with the young lady recovering, another week was deemed sufficient for her recuperation. Fog rolled in, rain began to fall, and a short break was called. A smell of burning was detected, difficult to discern over the wet vegetation, resembling a field after a controlled burn, seemingly coming from their house. Another empty panel indicated a transition. The house was engulfed in flames. A knight questioned if a monster had attacked, noting the victim's neck was bitten off, and the young lady remained in the room. He wondered if the knights left behind to guard had anticipated this and taken advantage of a lapse. A voice identified the threat as a formidable D-rank monster, the Mana Eater. The knight confirmed the young lady was still present. He shouted for the attacker to be drawn away from her, assuming it must be Len Ashton. The knight's vision distorted as he struggled to muster strength, questioning what was happening. He recognized the smell of incense, powerful enough to put even a dragon to sleep for days. His consciousness faded, acknowledging the dire situation. The knight awoke, disoriented and asking where he was, then addressed the young lady. Len Ashton confirmed the young lady was all right and breathing, surprised she was already awake. The captive was told 4 days of sleep should suffice. They were instructed to endure it, refrain from any foolish ideas, and behave, promising no harm, but they wondered how far from the village they had been taken. They had traveled 5 miles. They questioned the kidnapping, suspecting a beast tamer powerful enough to control 2 D-rank monsters, an opponent they couldn't fight recklessly. The biggest issue was the captive's worsening condition. Her life would be in danger if she didn't receive help soon. They made a plea to save her. Etched faintly 9031 appeared visible. Fate's defiance became the declaration made. Recalling a dream about Len Ashton occurred. Someone recalled a dream about Len Ashton. As a result, the speaker lacked the courage to fetch herbs and lost their father, who fought Chief Wolven before their eyes, after which the village was attacked and many lives were lost. The speaker apologized to their mother for failing to protect her, but a woman appeared alongside knights and saved the village in their bleak situation. She resembled nothing less than a true saintess. Was this as depicted in the legend of the 7 heroes Len's past? Was their encounter fated to unfold that way, and at least they didn't seem hostile toward one another? Did Len Ashton have to take her life, and was there a specific reason they stopped? Give her water and food. You're her lady, so don't be a fool. Sort it out yourself, and at least unlock these chains on my hands. I've already given you potions and herbs these past few days. I have no intention of spoiling you further. It's simply water, my young lady. The magic tool I'm using ensures any sound from yelling does no good. I must make my move tonight. Her strength is at its limit. Demon sword of metal. Ah, it broke the chains so easily. What incredible sharpness. Suddenly, a distorted symbol, possibly L71UV, materialized. Then emerged a low, resonant vibration shaking the chamber walls. Nearby, a flicker of crimson light pulsed beneath the debris. More fragmented text, 0.921%, flickered into view. A voice exclaimed, "What? Hey, where did you get that weapon?" The text Demon Sword of Wood-Iu Bowi was displayed. Another question followed. Natural Magus? A threat was issued. You're not getting away. The phrase Demon Sword of Banditry appeared with chaotic symbols. Urgently, a plea was made. My staff, what's the meaning of this? Please, just listen to me. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the room, its edges sharp and jagged like broken glass. Violently, a gust of wind tore through the corridor, scattering papers and extinguishing torches. Len Ashton declared his unusual power would not let the speaker escape. Len Ashton commanded the beasts of the forest to heed his call. A distorted, guttural sound emanated from the summoned creatures. The speaker realized Len was gathering forest monsters, noting he could only command those weaker than himself, thus revealing his power. A figure identified as a spy observed the scene. The spy noted the number 4, possibly indicating a rank or quantity. Another guttural sound, possibly a monster's cry, was heard. News arrived from the northern town. Lycia had been kidnapped, and her father, Lizard Colossal, was informed. A man confessed his failure to protect Lycia, offering to take punishment for the fallen men and begging for a chance to save her. Lizard confirmed Lycia herself, commanded the man to leave her side, acknowledging his loyalty, but stressing the need for immediate action and contact with the imperial capital and the emperor. Visitors from the imperial capital arrived, addressing Baron Colossal and stating they came on behalf of the Minister of Justice. The official document accused them of conspicuous negligence in administration, leading to monster harm in Viscount Gives territory. Granny Rig offered medicinal herbs, noting they were bitter but effective for reducing fever. With a steady hand, he offered the patient some water. Next, he checked the patient's temperature. Carefully, he adjusted the herbal poultice on the patient's forehead. The patient's fever had subsided, and they explained they got the herbs by trading monster materials gathered in the village forest 3 days prior. The patient expressed gratitude, asking not to mention it. Someone questioned how they knew they were on the outskirts of Viscount Givan's territory. The Baldur Mountains were pointed out as a landmark to gauge their location, the place where the final boss battle of the Legend of the 7 Heroes occurred. It would take about 4 days to reach Clausel, but ensuring the family's safety was the priority, as they were likely taking shelter. Assuring them their family was fine, the patient expressed a desire to greet the Baron, visit Clausel, sightsee, and then return. With curiosity, the adventurer asked if the strange creature was their dinner. Ensuring the family's safety remained the priority, even as plans for Clausel unfolded. He explained he caught it with a vine trap while it was perched on a tree, crediting the mysterious sword. She then asked about a broken magic tool snatched while escaping the beast tamer. He recalled the magic tool used to soundproof the carriage, suggesting it could serve as evidence. Apologizing for the wait, the cook noted the basic appearance and seasoning of the meal. Despite the simplicity of the meal, the chef mentioned the limited ingredients available. After tasting the dish, the diner found it bland but acceptable. She declared the food was delicious. Delighted by her praise, he expressed his gladness at hearing her positive feedback. With a grin, he thanked her for the compliment. Eager to replicate the success, he vowed to prepare the dish again. Flustered, the woman asked if he was feeling better. Later, she insisted he needed more rest before trying again. Meanwhile, the lingering scent of spices hinted at his earlier mistake. Perhaps a proper conversation could wait until he felt better. His face remained flushed, betraying the fever's persistence. Despite lingering signs, she thought the fever had finally broken. Len Ashton insisted he was fine and that it was nothing. Curious about his thoughts after he read her letter, she asked if she could pose another question. Calling him out for concealing something, she demanded to know why he kept it hidden. Puzzled by the box where he stored it, she wondered if he treasured the item, prompting him to ask which one she meant. Inquiring about the magic stones he seemed to gather, she pressed for reasons, but he insisted he wasn't collecting them, they simply looked pretty. Wondering if the woman referred to magic stones, the dreaming figure found her hobby odd, but admitted she owned many. Pondering her fascination, the dreaming figure questioned the stone's significance, curious yet skeptical. Recalling their first meeting, the dreaming figure hesitated before voicing thoughts he'd long suppressed. Since their initial glance, the dreaming figure confessed she'd occupied his mind relentlessly. Acknowledging her confusion, the dreaming figure conceded the timing felt cruel yet unavoidable. Confirming her suspicions, the dreaming figure admitted curiosity lingered, despite the awkwardness. Finding it strange to cling to oddities, the dreaming figure shrugged and told Len to decide. Though apologizing, the dreaming figure insisted his intrigue refused to fade, frustrating her further. How should she respond? The dreaming figure mused aloud, twisting his earlier words into a riddle. Recalling his prior request, the dreaming figure asked if using his name alone sufficed now. Verifying her instructions, the dreaming figure confirmed she'd urged him to skip formalities. Confused, the dreaming figure pressed for clarity on her abrupt shift in demeanor. With a flustered sigh, the woman apologized for the herb shortage but offered food instead. When asked their destination, the traveler replied they were heading north with no set plan and would reach Colossal if they kept going straight. The flustered woman gasped, asking why Baron Colossal was to be punished and what had transpired. She relayed rumors that Baron Colossal had instigated monsters against Viscount Givens, though she wasn't certain of the truth. The flustered woman vehemently denied the accusations, insisting her father would never act so, and that it was impossible. She found the entire situation odd, no matter how she considered it. The text indicated the location as the northern city Colossal. Viscount Givens declared the moment had arrived, stating that controlling the territory would undeniably expand the hero faction's influence. He added that they must first bring down the Colossals, as the time had come. The scene depicted two forces confronting each other on a ramp. The court would meticulously review the matter according to the great imperial law, with an announcement scheduled for tomorrow morning. Within days, the outcome was predictable: transport to the imperial city and punishment, though an appeal for a trial could be filed. He believed it futile, noting the opponent's preparedness and the likelihood of interference even before a trial began. This was strange. Even for someone of higher nobility, his methods were too forceful, questioning if it was merely a factional dispute. He worried about how he could save everyone if Baron Colossal was falsely accused and fell from power. Lady Lycia stated that neutral high-ranking nobles couldn't be relied upon, and he wondered if there was anything a child could do. Offering to call her Len in exchange for their journey, he emphasized the need to return to Colossal as soon as possible. Wondering how many would believe their story, he acknowledged the urgency of finding evidence linking the kidnapping to Viscount Gives. Needing evidence linking the kidnapping to Viscount Gives, he raced against the dwindling hours to uncover proof. Time was running out, he realized, as he scrambled to connect the dots before their window of opportunity closed. The forest and hills lay behind them. Colossal was finally in sight. The knight, bearing Viscount Gives' crest, spoke with garbled words. "Ah, what a relief to have found you," he exclaimed, his voice thick with relief. He identified himself as a knight of Viscount Gives, stating they had been searching for Len and Lydia at Baron Colossal's request. He confirmed they were searching for them. Urging haste, the knight vowed to escort them to safety immediately. Despite the risks, the group agreed to follow his lead without delay. Through shadowed woods, their path twisted toward an unseen refuge. Yet distant hoofbeats warned time was slipping faster than they'd feared. Len asked Lydia if she could leave the situation to him, acknowledging the danger but stating his readiness. Lydia questioned their discussion, stating their decision to accompany them depended on the explanation. The knight then presented an object, asking if Lydia recognized it. Lydia replied that she did not, asking what it was. They explained that the magical device was taken from their kidnapper. Observing Lydia's lack of interest, the other person requested to take the device as evidence. Refusing, The first speaker stated the Merchants Guild would examine it for information about its previous owners. They argued that this particular device was undoubtedly valuable, unlike common market items, and knowing its origin was impossible. They elaborated that figuring out if a thief obtained it, or if someone gave it to them, would clarify responsibility. Arguing logically, the speaker reasoned that whoever gave the device was essentially trying to defame them, asking for agreement. Recognizing the gravity, the other person acknowledged the matter's importance and requested the device be entrusted to them. Rejecting the plea, the first speaker dismissed the request, asserting jurisdiction over the territory and the village where the kidnapping occurred. Vowing to depart, the second speaker declared they had no desire for protection from knights who couldn't understand reason and decided to leave with Len, needing an escort. They insisted they did not need an escort, as they were nearly in the city and trusted only him for protection. The first speaker apologized but insisted they must accompany them. Len pleaded with the knight to leave the matter to him. The knight grunted in response. The knight thanked Len, stating that because he laid his hand on them, Viscount Gibbs could now be brought to court for another matter. He then expressed his gratitude. He called Len a foolish knight. The knight exclaimed in pain, questioning the holy magic. He yelled about the demon sword of Woody and ordered not to let them escape. Someone questioned what was happening, then declared they needed to report to the Viscount. A furious rider on horseback shouted that they were not getting away and to hold right there. Someone desperately urged them to hold on, stating they couldn't shake their pursuers and would soon be near human settlements if they could just surpass this hill. The beast tamer was mentioned. A voice announced that they knew the two would pass through this area. Displayed was the text, 4 ox 9 dinars VIRTT 7 Anigliscan size 43 neg high. Suddenly the word air materialized. Then a faint glow illuminated the surrounding walls. Someone requested the fire-starting sword, questioning why the approaching figures were heading their way and shouting for them to stop, identifying themselves as allies. A guttural scream GAAAAIK1 echoed. A voice scoffed at the bad timing, stating that surrender would be refused and force must be used. The voice continued, threatening that if the current approach failed, there would be no other choice. The text read Piao X Co 3 Anigliskansk size. Lady Lycia was asked if she had grown stronger again. She replied that she trained hard because she wanted to win against the speaker. Their situation was lamented in a statement, declaring that escape was impossible unless they defeated the beast tamer Len. Radiating immense power, a demon sword of metal appeared. To ensure survival, the group devised a risky plan to confront the beast tamer directly. The sword seemed much stronger now. The sword's increased strength caught his attention. The observer marveled at the wind pressure from the sword strike reaching so far. Suddenly, the blade's resonance hummed through the air, sharp and undeniable. Unnerved by the sudden shift in power, he tightened his grip on the hilt. The observer questioned why he was present. Pondering Yurko's unexpected appearance, he frowned. The observer identified Yurko, the beast tamer, as a boss from the Legend of the Seven Heroes noting his natural magic caused significant pain. Only after enrolling in the Imperial Cadet Academy did he expect to face Yurko, despite his years roaming the continent as an adventurer. The observer recalled Yurko's cruel disposition and history of killing fellow elves, leading to his exile, and questioned his presence there. Len's arms were bound by a powerful magic seal as punishment for killing his brethren. Without the staff's aid, his stats would normally be too low to even use them. Viscount Gibbs may have hired Len, suggesting his price was information on how to remove the seal. Len laughed, asking if his opponent truly believed he could win, and if his answer would force a change in tactics. On the other side, Two D-ranked chief woven monsters of equal strength remained, potentially making victory too difficult to achieve. A woman declared, "I'm glad to hear that, Len. I'm the Saintess of White, don't you remember?" Len responded with a confused, "Eh? Who?" The woman then asked him, "This is..." Lady Lycia unleashed her sacred magic, her laughter turning maniacal. Len grunted, struggling against the pain. The text Yulcom appeared. A voice declared, "With her by my side, we'll make it out of this," followed by a scream. Another voice stated, "With him by my side, I know well." The text Ags Comics com appeared. A determined voice proclaimed, "I'll finish this." Continuing the declaration right here. Suddenly, the text Agicomics com emerged. Displaying the text Als Comics com appeared. Next, the text Agicomics CPMIA materialized. There, the text VUWKJ flickered into view. Finally, the text Siomics com DDL4 surfaced. A sharp cry of Kiae echoed. A watermark displayed 7 plus gay 22K. Another watermark read Ags Comics Goyu. The watermark Ags Comics com Dogen appeared. Lady Lycia coughed, asking, "Are you all right?" Sacred magic, compounded by her sickness, proved too much for her to bear. Her body trembled under the strain of the overwhelming force. Displayed was the name Yarkikyu. Visible was the watermark Ags Comics Iom Kuhuhu. A series of AAHA echoed. His voice trembling, Yerku cried out about the blood, questioning if it all spilled from his own body, and lamenting that all he wanted was to kill people to undo his seal. A manic laugh escaped Yerkau as he questioned if this was the end, unable to kill anymore. The sight of people on the brink of death had always filled Yerkau with unspeakable ecstasy. He wondered why now. The figure questioned if there was greater pleasure than interacting with the opposite sex, reaching a climax. A growl escaped the figure as it identified the Mana Eater. The Mana Eater declared it would devour the entire arm, along with the seal, its madness running wild. A maniacal laugh erupted from the Mana Eater. Letting out a pained cry, the Mana Eater declared the agony unbearable, vowing to consume everything in one desperate gulp. It mourned the loss of its arm, questioning if that wasn't sufficient punishment, convinced this marked its final moments. Roaring in defiance, the Mana Eater thrashed wildly, blaming the potion for its torment and vowing vengeance. With a guttural snarl, the Mana Eater lunged forward, determined to crush its foe despite the searing pain. Cackling, the Mana Eater sneered about the potion's cruel cost, reveling in the irony of its own suffering. From the Mana Eater erupted a pained roar. Urging someone to keep breathing, a desperate shout rang out. To kill them both, the command was issued. The screen displayed xcomics.com. The text comics.com repeated across the screen. A watermark showed comics.com. The logo xcomics.com appeared with a graphic. The website xcomics.com was visible. Pained sound effect escaped, URGH. Yurko exclaimed that this wasn't the strength they knew. A voice stated the Mana Eater was now B rank, possibly higher. A guttural scream echoed, Gaial. Another cry of distress, Agiats, was heard. Len coughed, then laughed, acknowledging the situation. Len declared this was what killing was all about, with a laugh. The dreaming figure let out a final, ecstatic laugh, reveling in the moment. A message of thanks appeared, acknowledging protection received. Lady Lycia, despite her selfishness, pleaded with Len to leave the dangerous place. She urged him to live on and stay safe, even if she couldn't. Len vowed he would never abandon Lady Lycia, refusing to leave her behind. Vowing to protect Lady Lycia at all costs, Len made certain he would never abandon her. He had promised Lady Lycia he would never leave her behind, refusing to break his word. Never would Len abandon Lady Lycia, as doing so would mean leaving her to face danger alone. Twisted, pained cries filled the air. Echoing through the chaos were distorted, pained cries. The air quivered with distorted, pained cries. The analyst released a frustrated groan as the screen flickered. Echoing through the digital space was a distorted, mocking laugh. There appeared on the screen a single, cryptic character. Confusion rippled through the system as a new demon sword appeared. The familiar Axe Comics watermark appeared again. A desperate vow was made to protect Lady Lycia, no matter the cost. The speaker declared they would do anything to achieve their goal. The Axe Comics watermark reappeared. Another instance of the Axe Comics watermark. The Axe Comics watermark flashed once more. A guttural roar of frustration erupted. The bewildered strategist questioned the impossible situation. A logo for AxeComicCon appeared, dated R2. Displayed was the website axecomics.com. Accompanying the scene, X706 notation appeared alongside axecomics.com. Puzzled, the strategist wondered aloud about the nature of the power. Someone exclaimed, "Huh? So early in the morning? Hey, wake up! It looks like Baron Colossal is finally being transferred to the Imperial capital." A voice urged, "Eh? So early in the morning? Hey, wake up! It seems that Baron Colossal is finally being transferred to the Imperial capital." The AxeComics.com logo reappeared with a 77 mark. A simple 77 was presented. A statement declared, "Now that we've been transferred here, we can leave the rest to the royalist faction within the capital. The time is almost at hand." Someone remarked, "Once the transfer is complete, the Imperials in the capital will take care of the rest. It's almost time, isn't it?" A person asked, "Enlighten me, Viscount. Why were you so infatuated with that Len Ashton fellow?" The question was posed again. "Even so, Viscount, why was he obsessed with Len Ashton?" The Viscount recalled discovering certain information quite a while ago. He mused that controlling Len Ashton, or rather the Ashton family, would elevate the Given's name within the hero faction. This same individual mentioned finding some information from a while back by chance. By his account, securing Len Ashton or the Ashton family would enable his Given lineage to ascend among the heroes. The pressing issue, he emphasized, centered on the forest incident, a truth he alone needed to hold for now. Someone was assured that clarity would come in time, and that it was acceptable for the forest incident's truth to remain his alone. This individual reported sending men to investigate the scene, hoping they had apprehended the perpetrators by now to avoid further disgrace. He announced he was sending knights at dusk for investigation, expressing hope that the perpetrators would be captured soon to avoid making the situation a pain. AxeComics.com. Explore AxeComics.com. Discover AxeComics.com. The knight urged Lycia not to move, assuring her he was fine and glad she was safe, promising to talk later. The knight addressed Lycia as princess, telling her not to move and commending her for staying alive, promising to fill in details later. Declaring that for now, he didn't want to waste efforts, the knight asked if the person before him was Viscount Givens. Confirming that he didn't intend to waste efforts right now, the knight identified the other person as Viscount Givens. Though honored to meet the saintess, the knight was admonished to mind his tone, being called unmannered for a criminal and reminded she was a viscount. Cautioning her to watch her mouth, the knight noted her lack of decorum for a criminal and reiterated her title as viscount. The viscount found her statement interesting but clarified that her father, Baron Colossal, was the real criminal. Lycia responded with a simple, questioning, "Oh?" The viscount found her statement intriguing but corrected her, stating her father was the criminal. An observer noted Lycia seemed to be putting on a brave face despite her exhaustion, and that as a child, staying conscious was the limit of her body's endurance. Someone observed Lycia seemed to be acting bravely, though she was clearly exhausted. The observer added that moreover, she was young, and merely staying conscious was the best she could manage, looking as if she had been through a lot. The man with glasses demanded if the saintess could still remain confident, after seeing the elf's magic tool, implying it would reveal her connection to him. He pressed further, asking if she could remain assertive after seeing the magical tool belonging to the elf she hired, suggesting an investigation would reveal their link. The saintess scoffed, calling the man nonsensical and revealing that Len's entire village had been attacked by the elf he hired. She questioned why he appeared from there, pointing out the irony of his statement since both Len and she had been attacked by the elf he hired. The saintess challenged him, asking if he seriously believed a single magic tool proved her crimes, while he insisted the truth would be revealed through investigation. She countered that a mere magic tool wasn't evidence, but he insisted an investigation would clarify matters, adding that his knights had attacked them in the nearby forest. The saintess recalled the face of the knight who drew his sword against her and Len, but the Viscount claimed he was only issuing commands from outside the forest. She remembered the knight who swung his sword at her and Len, but he insisted he was commanding outside the forest, following the Viscount's orders. The man declared the saintess had been tricked, but she retorted they would see about that, and suggested discussing it back in his town to prove her claim, noting there would be no need for further action. He stated it appeared the saintess was deceived by someone and suggested a thorough discussion in his town for investigation, but unfortunately, that wouldn't be necessary. A knight serving under House Clausel urged the Viscount to examine the saintess's claims more carefully, but the Viscount dismissed it as unnecessary, stating a new tribunal could be opened at the imperial capital if insisted upon. The knight insisted they should carefully consider the young lady's words, but the Viscount, in charge of the Clausel family's knights, declared it unnecessary and that it would be good no matter what if they insisted. The knight demanded to see the other person's hand, asking who they were talking to. He repeated the demand to show their hands, again asking who they were addressing. The knight declared he was none other than their knight. This was a fan translation, and glitch scans would catch up in 4 months. Connected feelings that the speaker did not want to waste. Len. He instructed them to show the back of their hand, which should bear the marks Len and he had inflicted. They complied as the knight demanded proof of the wounds he and Len had inflicted. To refute the Viscount's claim, the knight argued the marks stemmed from labor, not violence. Now insisting on scrutiny, the knight ordered them to reveal their hands, declaring the Viscount mistaken. He again demanded to see the back of the hand, expecting scars made by Len and himself. A knight threatened to cut off the hand and show it himself, if they didn't reveal it immediately. Clad in glasses, the man demanded to see the other person's hands, insisting he was at work and not involved in violence. Observing the other's hesitation, he noted that the other person apparently didn't have a good potion to use. Urging haste, he pressed the other to show their hand quickly before he reached for his swords. Detailing the injuries, he explained that the wounds were undoubtedly from a sword, with white burn marks resulting from sacred magic, and that no potion could fully heal them. Once more, he reiterated that the other person clearly didn't have very good potions. Laughing, he agreed to establish a new tribunal to exonerate his knight, warning that the truth would soon surface. Confirming the magic's effects, he explained that holy wounds invariably leave traces, regardless of potion efficacy. Declaring the truth inevitable, he stated all would clarify in the imperial capital, affirming Baron Clausel's transfer as the first trial's end. Still chuckling, he proposed convening a new council to prove their knight's innocence. Crying out in disbelief, he declared the charade over and bid them farewell. Regardless, he maintained that everything would resolve in the imperial capital, with Baron Clausel's transfer unchanged post-trial. Refusing to yield, he concluded the transfer would stand as the first trial had ended. A voice exclaimed in disbelief that the spectacle had ended, followed by indistinct murmurs. Someone questioned the necessity of their wait, The single word "watch" appeared. A question was posed, "What should I?" The random string x88 appeared. The fragmented phrase "Melton W" to more than 20 was displayed. A comment praised something as truly excellent, followed by xvinua. Another comment declared something wonderful. A voice commended courage and dignity, calling it a beautiful story, before asking who was present. A similar sentiment praised courage and dignity as a beautiful story, then inquired about the speaker's identity. Edgar introduced himself, asking the Lady Saintess to entrust the matter to him. Edgar repeated his offer to the Lady Saint, asking her to leave it to his handling. A figure declared they would help conclude the story these two had woven, stating their master had ordered them to visit. The figure continued, expressing pleasure in meeting Viscount Gibbs and assuring they would not overstep the boundaries set by the pair. The figure apologized for their forgetfulness, noting the time was 6. They offered further apologies, mentioning the time was 7. Viscount Gibbs questioned the emblem, recognizing its significance. The figure confirmed the crest's identity, eliciting surprise from Viscount Gibbs. The figure acknowledged Viscount Gibbs' recognition of their master and dismissed the accusation of deception, noting that forging a noble's emblem was a capital offense. Viscount Gibbs insisted the figure was plotting something, as falsifying a noble crest was a capital offense. Addressing Viscount Gibbs, the figure questioned whether he represented the imperial court, clarifying they operated under permission to challenge the trial's legitimacy. Asserting authority, the figure declared their lord's mandate allowed unrestricted action in the trial and authorized them to speak as their lord's proxy. Citing their master's debt to House Colossal, the figure revealed they'd been ordered by Len Ashton to intervene should the trial reach a dire outcome. Viscount Gibbs reacted with disbelief upon hearing Len Ashton's name, while the figure reiterated their lord's gratitude to the Colossal family and commitment to resolving the situation. A voice declared that a hand would be lent until the very end. The instruction to lend assistance until the conclusion was repeated. Someone questioned why he was making a move now, as there should be no reason to offer power. Another voice expressed confusion regarding the sudden action and the provision of strength. A master decided to help the two after witnessing their miracle, and because Sir Len Ashton had saved someone's life. A thought occurred, reminding the speaker of something. Thanks to the miracle, the master could lend help without worry, and Lord Len Ashton had saved a life. A question was posed referencing an earlier comment about outclassing them. Comments were read, and a wallpaper colored by Tamakoshi was offered as a response to criticism. Upon waking, Len felt lonely, wondering what was happening. He recognized the place with surprise, exclaiming in wonder. Lycia-sama had been sleeping for over 4 months after arriving at Colossal Irwin. Lady Lycia gratefully offered her home to the injured protagonist until his wounds healed, insisting he didn't need to get up. The Viscount committed suicide with hidden poison, or perhaps he simply gave up, pressured by his relatives, leaving the cause of death uncertain. The Viscount's mansion was reduced to ashes, set ablaze by someone, but this time, the great noble lent their power thanks to the protagonist. Len explained that without all the necessary ingredients, the medicine couldn't be refined, and Chief Wolven's internal organs were a valuable component. The medicine was apparently able to save the Marquis's daughter, who had been bedridden for years, and he entrusted Len with an invitation to his mansion. Marquis de Ignat, a great aristocrat and proud member of the royal family, bore the emblem of the final boss from the Legend of the Seven Heroes. Despite being a great aristocrat, he cooperated with the enemy military, plotting the revival of the Demon King with his maritime transport prowess. A few weeks after the village attack, Len's parents, who had evacuated, heard he was safe and came to Colossal, bringing belongings from their burned-down mansion. Len mentioned it wasn't a big deal, and that his bracelet seemed to absorb magic from the magic stone, noting his demon sword was renamed Magic Sword. He expressed gladness that Lycia's parents were doing well, then stared intently at her, prompting her to ask if she had a specific aura. Lycia reacted with surprise and embarrassment, asking if her father had told him, and questioned if everyone joked about the saint being just a joke. Len clarified it wasn't that, urging Lycia to keep it a secret because only the most powerful saints carried a magical stone within their bodies, known only to their family. The narrator wondered if the magic sword's power was connected to the disaster from the legend of the 7 heroes. He reflected on trying to avoid her until recently, yet still ending up at Clausel's with her determined presence. The narrator believed defeating Chief Wolven changed Len's past from the dream, altering Yurko's role as a mid-boss. He questioned how Len's decisions affected this world, asking why Len suddenly spaced out. The narrator noted how Len, who had beaten him severely on their first meeting, was now saying kind things and acting shy. The scene shifted to the Imperial Military Academy's principal's office. Flashes of light appeared across the continent, starting with the sky, and some claimed it was the hero's power. The light beam that appeared in the Clausel territory was thought by some to be a miracle of the holy saint the Clausel family revered, but its true nature remained unclear. Somewhere in the world, a voice wished for their boredom to disappear. The narrator apologized for the translation quality, but offered wallpaper colored by Tamakoshi as a bonus. Within the imperial capital of the legend of the 7 heroes, several incidents occurred, including a nobleman dying of unknown causes and an imperial guard attacking the 3rd unit. Marcus Ignat, the head of the imperialists, was responsible for the mysterious incidents plaguing the capital, driven by a desperate need for a cure in his pursuit for revenge. Materials stockpiled for the imperial family's safety were used, but the emperor's decision cost him his daughter, leading to the Marquis's actions. Someone questioned if the boy was truly amazing, but the speaker insisted Len Ashton's worth couldn't be easily measured. The game The Legend of the 7 Heroes 2 depicted a noble dying of unknown causes and a crazed royal guard attacking the 3rd prince in the imperial city. The story garnered acclaim, and the game's plot had largely faded from discussion. Marcus Ignat, head of a noble house, harbored a burning desire for vengeance after the emperor denied his ailing daughter vital medicine. A quiet acknowledgement followed, with the speaker noting it wasn't necessary to voice such sentiments. Acknowledging the emperor's refusal stemmed from imperial family protocols, the speaker elaborated that the core issue was whether Marcus Ignat could accept such a decision. Though the emperor's decision to reserve rare materials for emergencies was not inherently wrong, it ultimately led to the loss of Marcus Ignat's daughter's life. Questioning whether he was truly an extraordinary young man, the speaker asserted that even the Lord would recognize Len Ashton's unique worth. Lady Fiona inquired about the journey to Clausel, offering assistance while gently suggesting a less formal address towards commoners. Lady Fiona then proposed sending a letter as an alternative. One individual deemed a letter suitable, but advised respecting Baron Clausel's wishes and enduring the current situation a bit longer. The figure responded with a simple affirmation, acknowledging the statement. The speaker offered an apology, explaining the king's actions were for the imperial family and questioning the recipient's acceptance of the situation. Suddenly, a title appeared, proclaiming Reincarnated Mastermind. Vowing to express thanks in person someday, the story will resume in the next issue. Readers, visit axcomics.com for superior quality and expedited updates. Someone reassured Fiona-sama, vowing to grow stronger alongside her and offering to accompany her on her trip to Clausel. A tentative question followed. Then, perhaps a letter would suffice? The suggestion was deemed acceptable, but they agreed to honor Baron Clausel's wishes and requested continued patience. Agreement was voiced with a simple "you're right." A vow was reiterated. They would meet again someday to offer their sincere thanks. The text described Sarakia's blue sphere, a rare item that absorbed energy, with a link to xcomics.com. The item was depicted as an egg-like object with a resilient shell, impervious to any blade. A woman with disheveled hair and a tense posture apologized for the late hour, requesting a moment of his time and noting the jewel. Her explanation revealed that her parents had misplaced the item, Chief Wolven had brought it, and it had miraculously survived the fire. The jewel, Sarakia's blue pearl, was described by her as a rare artifact that seemed to draw in her magic during the quiet of the night. A simple yes confirmed her request. Addressing Len directly, she said, "In that case, Len." Pausing briefly, she glanced at the window before continuing. An ambitious proposal emerged: to meet until they had encountered each other 1,000 times over, acknowledging it was a long-term aspiration. Resembling an egg, the object was described by her as having a shell so robust that no sword could mar it, radiating immense power, possibly from a great dragon. Reflecting aloud, she mused that even meeting daily, it would take nearly 3 years, and her father had permitted her to reside in that room. With a graceful bow, the White Saint Lycia Clausel apologized for the late intrusion, requesting a moment of his time and again noticing the jewel. Echoing through the halls, distant footsteps served as a reminder of the castle's lingering presence, though no one moved to investigate. Casting fractured colors, the moonlight filtered through stained glass, painting the stone floor in hues of crimson and gold. In a hushed tone, the dreaming figure whispered. Noting the details, the health-conscious narrator remarked that Chief Wolven's clothing, recovered recently, showed no signs of burning, suggesting considerable resilience. Recalling their routine, the dreaming figure recounted continuing daily meetings and occasional shopping trips with Lady Lycia, who asked if he would buy something for her. A voice declared that 1,000 times, yes, at least 1,000 times, should be fine. Announcing the arrival of the Holy Knights in Clausel, he detailed how the kanji for holy signified truth, embodying the Knights of Justice. His father had granted him the room's use, though the relentless work spanned nearly 3 years for daily meetings. Explaining the Holy Knight's training, he highlighted the hero ruin's holy sword technique and complementary styles they mastered. Describing Clausel's ancient prophecies, he tied each symbol to the land's lost lore, foretelling the knight's destined return. With a sigh, he admitted the weight of duty, questioning if his sacrifices would ever be truly acknowledged. Repeating his plea for patience, he entrusted his future to their care for just a little longer. Praising the imperial swordsmanship as Lezard's sake-forged guardian, he vowed his life's work to its perfection. Recalling Lady Lycia's shopping trips, he smiled at her asking if he'd buy something, always agreeing since he used his allowance. One must possess innate talent to learn techniques like the strong sword technique, but perhaps other styles would be a better fit. Imperial Knights are here in Clausel to observe Lycia-sama's sword skill, led by a capable and famous commander. Users of the strong sword technique were already powerful, and their ability to permanently lower an opponent's stats made them unpleasant to fight. Knights learn not only basic swordsmanship, but also specialized styles, such as the holy sword technique founded by the hero Ruin. You are welcome to join the Saintess if you wish, but I am only here to observe, having heard about it from her. The holy imperial swordsmanship, focused solely on the holy sword technique, was cut out for Lezard Sama's sake, and is known as the Sword of Pro. Why don't we have a little spar? Wise Sama, have you considered learning other sword techniques, as without inherent talent, one cannot master them, like Gukenji? The users of Gukenji were already strong, and unpleasant memories flooded back as their ability to permanently lower stats made them difficult opponents. Perhaps it's because I was thinking about the game world again, mimicking the holy sword, that I can fight as I normally would. If you don't mind, please join us. I only came to observe, having heard about it from the saintess, and why Sama also recognized you." A voice mused that they should start with some light sparring. Apologies came from the speaker, admitting they didn't think it was possible. Acknowledging past mistakes, the speaker admitted their doubts about the possibility. Continuing the apology, the speaker reiterated their disbelief in its feasibility. They proposed a return to authentic combat styles, echoing old gaming habits and holy sword mimicry. Reflecting on their gaming past, the speaker mentioned unintentional technique replication during sparring. Disbelief colored the speaker's tone as they described their blocked breakthrough attempt. Then, Len Ashton apologized for the late introduction and asked for a name, only to be told he wasn't suited for the holy sword technique. The speaker acknowledged his strength, but attributed his unsuitability to ingrained habits from his father's training. Someone apologized, never thinking it would come to this. The speaker offered to teach, stating it would be an honor to instruct a young man with potential. He tried to break through her defenses, but Lycia held her ground. Their swords clashed, revealing the young man's talent for a different style, which put Lycia in a foul mood. Len Ashton introduced himself, apologizing for the delay and asking for her name, but was told holy sword techniques weren't suited for him. He observed her skills and spoke the truth, making it seem as though she had made a mistake, eliciting a clear reaction. The training Len received from his father had instilled certain habits, but the issue was suitability, not his raw strength. She told him not to worry about her and to focus on himself, stating her sword needed to match his to win again. If he could guide a promising young man like Len, he would be pleased to instruct him in the basics of swordsmanship. He was told it was premature and that there was still time to correct them, but he resisted fixing habits developed similarly to hers. When their swords crossed earlier, it became apparent the young man likely possessed talent for a different swordsmanship, and Lycia grew increasingly grumpy. She insisted he didn't need to worry, as many sword styles existed, and there was no need to adhere solely to the holy sword technique. He admitted Lycia was in a bad mood, but she maintained it was true and that Len's words had made her realize something. The knight confessed he was merely a country boy, while Lady Lycia was the saintess, free to learn anything she desired. Urging Lycia to concentrate on her own progress, he assured her he was fine and that commanders often studied sword techniques, much like Len. Admitting his struggle with ingrained habits during learning, he questioned if it was better to start anew with a different style if the current path was a waste of time. Mentioning that correction was still possible, he felt Len implied his goal was misguided and disliked the notion of having to alter his objective. Promising to help Lycia find the ideal school, he added that if she was going to say such things, then it was her prerogative. Reiterating not to worry about him, he stated other sword techniques existed, and there was no need to fixate on just the holy sword technique, suggesting other schools might be available. Questioning if Lycia could easily agree to abandon the sword techniques taught by her father, because they were unnecessary, he implied she would eventually master it. Contrasting his own situation as a country knight's son learning freely with Lycia's status as a saint, he claimed they were the same and he had no obligations, unlike her. Explaining that correcting ingrained habits during learning wasted time, he concluded it would be better to learn a different sword technique from the outset if it allowed for greater progress. Line 1826 was omitted in the original request. She was more than just a character from a game. He observed that Lady Lycia was simply being herself. Lady Lycia declared she would find a swordsmanship school for herself, but the other girl insisted she couldn't lag behind her peers and needed to work harder. The girl urged herself to keep moving forward on her own 2 feet, despite the strain. She pushed herself to continue, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she struggled onward. The girl cried out, admitting she was already behind her peers and needed to put in more effort, but apologized as she felt she had overexerted herself and suggested they stop for the day. She gasped, refusing to stop because she was behind her peers and had to work many times harder, apologizing for losing her strength and suggesting they call it a day. The girl explained that after spending much of her life confined to a bed, she could barely walk on her own, and pleaded to keep going a little longer. Because she had spent so much time in bed, she couldn't walk at all on her own and begged to try a little harder, promising to stop before getting hurt. Recalling a body that only felt pain and a world of constant suffering, she expressed a desire to one day stand before him with her own strength to thank him. Remembering a body tormented by pain every day and the suffering she had experienced, she stated her wish to stand on her own feet in front of him someday to thank him. To him who set her free, she offered a heartfelt thanks. Fiona complimented the girl on a job well done, mentioning she had watched from the office window and that she did really well, though she felt embarrassed by the praise given her own limited walking. The girl, out of breath, called it a splendid job, while Fiona, also out of breath, said she was watching from the office and that the girl did really well, finding it embarrassing to be called splendid when she herself could barely walk. A letter arrived for the dreaming figure, its seal bearing the crest of the Imperial Military Academy, hinting at exam results. Fiona received a letter from the Imperial Military Academy, asking if it contained her preliminary exam results. Fiona exclaimed that she had passed, though her father had harbored no doubts about her success. Her father asked Fiona if she truly believed so, and why she appeared so surprised. Fiona joyfully announced her passing, admitting she never expected her father to fail. The father asked Fiona if she agreed, then questioned her hesitation. Though her health was frail, Fiona never ceased her studies, and only the final exams truly mattered to him. While Ojol-sama was ill, she diligently studied in bed, and only the final exam truly mattered to him. Avoiding overexertion was critical, he warned, as injury before thanking Len Ashton would render everything meaningless. Injury before thanking Len Ashton would be pointless, she acknowledged, confirming her understanding. The knight asked Len Ashton what he planned to do next, offering him a position as a knight if he stayed in Clausel until succeeding his family. He suggested Len could continue serving as a knight or live with his family once he became head of the Clausel family. Len hesitated, admitting his desire to live with his family again, but fearing he might cause trouble. He expressed his wish to reunite with his family, but worried about potentially causing further disturbances. The knight acknowledged Viscount Gives' intense fixation on Len, noting that Roy had consulted him and Len was likely to be targeted. He confirmed Viscount Gives' unusual obsession with Len, stating that while facing monsters was manageable, protecting Len from people would prove difficult. The knight offered his personal opinion that there was no need to rush decisions about the future, suggesting Len could live peacefully in Clausel until the village was rebuilt. He reiterated that in his personal opinion, rushing future decisions was unnecessary, and that living leisurely in Clausel until the village reconstruction was complete would be beneficial. Len found the idea complicated, explaining that the only way to outrank powerful nobles was to marry into the imperial family, though he meant something different. He clarified that marrying into the imperial family was a difficult path to gain status above high nobility, but his intended point was elsewhere. The knight inquired if Len meant the Sword King, Lord Lezard, and Len confirmed, explaining the title held by the world's 5 strongest swordsmen, who were not bound by nation. Len confirmed he was referring to Lezard-sama, the Sword King, and elaborated that the 5 Sword Kings were the strongest swordsmen in the world, who acted independently. He mentioned that even though they held back significantly, one Sword King in The Legend of the Seven Heroes could be challenged, and combined with high protagonist levels, it would require considerable effort. The Legend of the Seven Heroes featured a Sword King who could be challenged even with considerable mercy, allowing protagonists to reach maximum levels. The speaker appreciated the offer, but insisted on reciprocating, asking if there was any way they could be of assistance. Gladly accepting the offer, the speaker stated they couldn't sit idle and would appreciate any work they could help with. The other person confirmed that due to the recent monster wave, they were already planning an investigation, and the job would involve patrolling the area. They reiterated that the consequences of too many monsters were well known, and the job involved verifying the status of nearby monsters. The speaker mentioned that when going into the city, it was fine to accept requests from the Adventurers Guild. They added that while outside town, it was also acceptable to take on requests at the Adventurers Guild, wondering if that was indeed the guild. Someone exclaimed, Yeah, don't stare, it's disrespectful. Hey, isn't that? Another person chimed in, Yeah, don't stare rudely. Oh, isn't he? Requesting to register, the speaker prompted a reply of, Understood, however, would that be all right? Followed by a mention of the registration fee, and Baron Clausel's opinion. Again, the speaker insisted on registering, drawing a response of, Understood, but are you sure? With reminders of the fee and a question about consulting Baron Clausel. Aware of the rank-up fees for reissuing guild cards, the speaker vowed caution after reading about it. Len Ashton knew the rank-up conditions, having read about them in a book, and understood which guilds could reissue lost cards. Len Ashton, the esteemed hero, inquired about the monsters in the Clausel territory, noting the rarity of strong D-rank threats. Strong D-rank monsters seldom appeared in the Clausel territory, a scarcity that concerned Hero Dono. Len was advised not to provoke the D-rank monsters, as they would only counterattack with potent force if disturbed. He was told to leave the D-rank monster alone, as it wouldn't harm anyone, but provoking it would invite a powerful counterattack. Gargoyles typically ate meat, but some consumed metals and ores, from which unique monsters with valuable materials and high skills emerged. While some gargoyles fed on metals and minerals, birthing special individuals, fighting one might be better after consulting Lizard Sama about its materials. The eldest son of the Ashton family, Len Ashton, held level 1 in Demon Sword Summoning and level 3 in its technique, having gained 239 proficiency points through use of the summoned sword. As the eldest son of the Ashton family, Len Ashton possessed level 1 in Magic Sword Summoning and level 3 in its art, accumulating proficiency through the use of the summoned magic sword. F was the rank assigned to Len Ashton. Though bearing low-tier classifications, Len Ashton's dual summoning abilities hinted at latent potential yet to be realized. He possessed a demon sword of metal and a demon sword of wood. The shopkeeper displayed 2 enchanted swords, one forged from iron, the other from wood. A customer remarked on the convenience of the items being sold. Highlighting the item's convenience, the shopkeeper pointed to their specifications. Next, the shopkeeper detailed the sword's abilities. Level 3 for summoning a medium creature, Level 4 for a physical boost, and Level 5 for a minor demon sword effect. Then, the shopkeeper explained the Level 3 summoning ability, the Level 4 physical boost, and the Level 5 wooden magic sword equivalent. A customer expressed shock and amazement, asking if everything was available for purchase. Surprised by the items, the shopkeeper confirmed that everything was indeed for sale. Confirming the sale of 2 E-rank earthworms, the shopkeeper noted their magic stones had been removed and requested an appraisal. With the magic stones removed from the 2 E-rank earthworms, the shopkeeper asked for an appraisal. Calculating he had earned a substantial amount of money for one day's work based on a commoner's hourly wage, the customer decided to buy a wallet. Len Ashton arrived as the customer decided to buy a wallet, having earned 600,000 G in one day. 1 month later, a woman questioned Len Ashton's move and destination, but he insisted she continue living there. 1 month later, a distressed voice questioned if Len was moving and where he was going, insisting he shouldn't worry about continuing to live in the current room. A voice explained they couldn't do that, being merely an Ashton family member serving Lady Lycia, and asked for directions to the old mansion. Len stated it was fine, that he was strictly an Ashton family member serving Lycia-sama, and asked for directions to the old mansion since living in the guest room indefinitely wasn't ideal. Someone exclaimed they thought Len was returning to the village and hadn't heard anything about this, apologizing for planning to inform him later and mentioning a package for him. The same person expressed surprise that Len was moving, apologizing for not mentioning it sooner, and explaining they had received a delivery for Len-sama, thanking Yuno-san. A voice politely offered the delivery, stating they would be happy if it was accepted. Another voice agreed, asking if it was all right to accept if the recipient didn't mind. A hesitant voice asked if the package was for them. The hesitant voice repeated the question, asking if it was for them. A voice confirmed it was for them, explaining they bought it the very first day they earned money. The confirmation came again, confirming the item was purchased the very day money was first earned. A gentle voice commented on its cuteness, offering a different one if it wasn't to their liking. Offering the item, the woman asked if the recipient disliked it, and she would fetch another. Refusing to consider returning the item, the recipient firmly declared their stance. Noticing the recipient's pleased expression, the woman apologized for the gift that had unintentionally earned forgiveness. She wondered if the recipient liked it, lamenting it was unfair and asking if a gift alone wasn't enough. The recipient explained it wasn't that, but too many things happened at once, leaving no time to prepare their heart, and their mood hadn't improved. The recipient clarified it wasn't that, stating things were happening too quickly to prepare their heart, and their mood hadn't suddenly improved either. Inside Len's dream, he recalled Crono Highland, the world's greatest wizard from the Legend of the Seven Heroes, after Lycia Clausel. The text explained Crono was the headmaster of the Imperial Military Academy, on par with the Sword Kings, making Len Ashton's victory a mystery. A voice greeted a man, remarking on his energetic appearance as a glitchy graphic with the Adventurers Guild logo appeared. The man wondered if there was anything interesting, questioning if he hadn't eaten enough breakfast, as a cute sound was heard. A glitchy graphic reappeared, and a voice invited the man over for breakfast if he liked. The man declined, stating he was all right and had brought enough money, to which the other person responded with surprise. The woman's voice, sounding artificially processed, commented that the other person's maturity was likely due to age. She then asked for the other person's opinion after their conversation. A glitchy scan appeared, showing the woman considering how to kidnap the other person. She laughed it off as a joke, claiming knights would arrest her, and then invited the other person to the imperial capital. Explaining their need to prioritize personal business first, the other person mentioned a magic ship and a stagecoach. Offering to teach the other person about their strange power, the woman sparked surprise. Questioning whether she referred to Demon Sword summoning a secret never disclosed, the other person noticed her absence. Someone mentioned the guild asked them to hunt deeper in the forest and to keep an eye out nearby. Accepting the situation, the speaker wanted to observe the other's hunting style and requested guidance. Observing the other's technique, they asked how to improve their own approach while navigating deeper. Confirming the inspection's progress, they remarked on the smooth process and anticipated earnings, citing Lord Lezard's approval for magical tools. Someone reacted with surprise to a voice they had just heard. A guttural roar echoed, a sound of immense power and distress. The man in glasses exclaimed in disbelief, questioning why such a monster appeared here. Animated glitches flickered across the screen, distorting the visual feed. A sharp cry, "Ahi!" pierced the air. Suddenly, the words "Disik Gis Kalmis" flashed briefly amidst the visual static. Amidst the chaos, a guttural growl echoed from the creature's throat. Recognizing its roar, the man identified the creature as a steel-eating gargoyle. A knight, concerned, asked if everyone was all right, noting the monster's unexpected proximity to Clausel. More animated glitches distorted the image, accompanied by a growl. He grimaced, acknowledging the monster's tough exterior as expected. Suddenly, a sharp cry, "Yeah!" pierced the battlefield's noise. The observer noted that even a D-rank monster wasn't as powerful as Chief Wolven. Clad in armor, a figure wondered aloud if two foes lurked ahead. He asked again, bewildered, "What?" The second one,